morning, my fellow patriots. I appreciate you being here this morning. It was revealed yesterday that TPUSA founder Charlie Kirk's body was flown from Utah to his home state of Arizona. Yes, he was born here in the state of Illinois and went to high school in, I believe, Arlington Heights, somewhere a suburb of Chicago. Now, he was flown back to his home state of Arizona on Air Force Two with Kirk's wife being on the flight, Erika. And then also Erika was accompanied by Vice President JD Vance and Vice President JD Vance's wife, Usha. So the Kirk family members were there and his friends were there. And Mr. Kirk, the beloved conservative Christian icon, I would say Christian martyr. We will be having my pastor on today around 7 o'clock. He's going to be joining us to talk about Charlie Kirk and his life and what we can learn from it as Christians. 7 things that we can learn from the life of Charlie Kirk, who is a Christian martyr. That was yesterday's show. We really dug into how he was a Christian martyr. And he was respected by millions. And he was assassinated at an event in Utah, at Utah Valley University. He was 31. He's a father of 2 precious children. So I do want to get to this video. It was very touching, this video, and I wanted to share it with you guys. It was Air Force Two in the flight. There's this, I don't know if it's the air traffic control or the pilot, but they had a message for Charlie when they landed, but we're going to get to that here in just a second. I also have updates regarding this Colorado shooting. Interesting. The media and the FBI have not released details, really too many details about Desmond Holly, who is a student, 16 years old, and has been identified as the shooter. That happened just like an hour or so after Charlie Kirk got shot. I've learned some things about Desmond on my own, the shooter. Now, the FBI has revealed that this individual is has been or was radicalized. He died after sustaining self-inflicted injuries. He succumbed to those injuries, the shooter. We don't know much other than that, though. We don't know the conditions of the victims. Both are critical. So I'll get to that story as well. I know very little about Desmond. We do know that he was radicalized by whom or by what. We don't know. An extremist group. But one thing I can say about that story is it's weird. His social media was scrubbed before they even identified. They're getting really good at this, covering up the radical shootings, the radicalized children in these public schools. And the radicalized children, not even in public schools. We saw it at the Catholic school in Nashville, the school, the Christian school. I mean, there is a targeting going on. And there is a radicalization of our children and of our youth. And I will say that Desmond's father, appears to be his father, on social media. They scrubbed Desmond's social media, so I wasn't able to really grab anything about Desmond, the shooter. But I was able to figure out that his father took him to an anti-Trump rally. And this kid is, 16 years old. The radicalization happens earlier and earlier these days. But Desmond is seen on social media holding up a sign. I'd throw eggs at Donald Trump, but they're too expensive. Okay, so that's all we really know. His father appears to have a certain political affiliation. We don't know Desmond's political affiliation or why or what the motive was, whom he was radicalized by, what group he was a part of, extremist group. We do know he was radicalized. We do know that he was radicalized by an extremist group. So I have updates on that story for you coming up in just a little bit, but I do want to get to this. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you being here. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. I do want to also get to my interview at 7 o'clock today. Pastor Tim, you will not want to miss that at 7 a.m. He's going to tell us how we can learn from the Christian life of Charlie Kirk. And he's going to be talking about that this Sunday. I invite you to the Tabernacle on Hovey Avenue in Normal to join us to hear about Charlie Kirk, the Christian martyr. All right, let's get to this video. Like I said, very touching. This is air traffic control or a pilot. He was on a microphone and he profoundly declares here, "Welcome home, Charlie. You didn't deserve it. God bless you and your family." Video taken ahead of Air Force Two, taken ahead of the Air Force Two flight, shows actually right before it takes off, Vice President JD Vance carrying the casket. And it shows Second Lady and Mrs. Kirk walking together. I mean, after they land in Arizona, there's video after the flight that shows the two of them holding hands. She holds hands with Miss Kirk in a show of support as they deboarded the flight. So let's take a listen to this. This was truly touching video. Here we go.
Clear line 26, Southwest 66. Welcome home, Charlie. You didn't deserve it. May God bless your family.
South 1555, Phoenix Center, wind 2409, runway 26, good line.
Clear line 26, Southwest 66. Welcome home, Charlie. You didn't deserve it. May God bless your family.
Okay. So, like I said, kind of unclear the sound there, but I'll just tell you, he just said, "Charlie, you didn't deserve it. Welcome home. God bless you and your family." So there was another there's another thing I want to talk about today. Is the killer remains at large. They haven't caught him yet. The FBI has released new footage of the suspect. There's footage of him jumping off of the building like some sort of ninja. I mean, I don't know if this guy has training or what, but I don't know too many young men, normal young men who would be able to pull that off. And I get it, 200 yards isn't that far, but it's far enough to where you definitely have some sort of range practice or training. And then to quickly, I mean, he changed his clothes, jumped off the building. It appears he has changed his clothes because the footage that I was watching of him jumping off the building, he appeared to be wearing like some sort of jacket. The video that the FBI released, the new video, it shows him wearing a t-shirt. So he must have taken off his jacket as he was running, jumped off the building as he was running away from the building he was on. He strips the jacket. So maybe he had the t-shirt on underneath, but President Trump, he broke the news of Kirk's death on Wednesday. And yesterday he attended a 9/11 remembrance event, and he had posthumously awarded Charlie Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And at this event, he had made that announcement, and he was at this 9/11 remembrance event, and he does plan to attend Charlie Kirk's funeral. The Vances traveled to Utah to be with the Kirk family on 9/11, and Trump has said that he's going to be attending Kirk's funeral. Okay, so I'm just catching you up here on the latest. There were additional photos shared with the public from the FBI. They want help finding this guy, the guy at large. I don't know if they're ever going to find him. I'm going to be honest. I watched an interview with Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump, just the sentiment in his voice, it sounds like he's not he's not hopeful that they won't find him, but I think that he understands the gravity here, that we're dealing with a professional. Okay. This is not some radical teen. Okay. I think this is somebody who had planned this for a while. perhaps had help. That is just the way I'm looking at this. So here's the video, or the photos of the guy. They don't have much. I mean, he's in a ball cap. He's in, sunglasses. There's not a ton here. I mean, how are you going to identify this guy? You know what I mean? They're asking for help, like via tip line. I just don't see how you're going to find him. I hope that they do, obviously. And I don't think that, FBI, Cash Patel, Dan Bongino, these were friends of Charlie Kirk, so I'd imagine that they won't stop until they find him. But the FBI is urging people to contact them with tips, photos, videos. There's a $100,000 reward being offered for information, not even for like information or for like the guy himself, turning him in. They said information leading to identification and arrest of the individual responsible for assassinating Charlie Kirk. So, like I said, I don't know. It feels like this is a professional job. And, you might disagree with me. Maybe it is just a student. There's whispers, obviously, all over Twitter of some students that he debated with, possibly being this guy. I mean, he looks close. There's this fella out there. I'm not going to say his name because I don't think he looks even that much like him. But I mean, social media is circulating, like posters circulating that, oh, it was this kid who Charlie debated not that long ago. He's got black hair. I don't even see how you could identify this individual. And they're asking people for help in identifying him. You guys didn't even really, there's not much there. He's got a ball cap and sunglasses on. I can't tell what he looks like. He's got dark hair. I mean, that's about it. So, friends, I want to buckle up, because things are getting spicy here. And I'm talking about Sean Spicer, his brutal takedown, but it's like super accurate, supremely accurate takedown of this, but both sides argument. And I talked about this a lot yesterday. I am not at a point where I'm calling for unity. I don't want to unify with these people. If you hold a godless ideology, the same godless ideology that took Charlie Kirk's life, I don't want to hang out with you. I don't want to have anything to do with you or unite with you. Regardless of your political affiliation, you should condemn violence. And, the ruling class is going to tell you what to say about, Charlie Kirk or what to think. And to be frank, I mean, I'll tell you what I think and what I want to say. No, I'm not interested in unifying and that we should condemn all violence. I'm not calling for violence. I want to make that clear. But why would I condemn all violence when all of the violence, I am condemning all violence when I say, hey, the violence is only happening on one side of the aisle. Okay, there's one group of people who are extremely radicalized. There's a group of people out there who are extremely radicalized, and I said taken over by demonic activity. I'm not even angry or upset with people. I don't even get really mad at politicians anymore when they say silly things like Governor JB Pritzker saying that we don't know if it's politically motivated yet. Are you kidding me? He was assassinated. He's a political activist, and he was in front of a crowd of people debating college students like he normally does. And you're getting out there and saying it's not politically motivated. He was the only guy shot. Of course it was politically motivated. Are you insane? He was shot in the throat. And but I don't even get really mad at JP Pritzker. Like, I don't even see him as a person really anymore. They're just shells. They're just bodies. And there's this godless ideology that has gripped their souls. And I so desperately want them to come back. Come home. I want the Democrat Party to come back and to be normal people again and recognize that there are men and that there are women and that sterilizing children is bad and that cutting babies out of women's wombs is terrible. I want sanity. So this both sides argument is just gay. It's stupid. And this is the Zoom-based news show. Mark Halpern and Sean Spicer. And Sean Spicer has a Democrat counterpart, Dan Tortine, on this show. It's a Zoom-based news show. They were hosting it, and I'll just kind of describe Sean Spicer and his comments and the takedown, really, of his two Democrat hosts here, okay, or his two leftist hosts. They devoted the entire episode to Charlie Kirk. I will play a little bit of it here, but it's really like tone deaf. So if you want to go watch the whole thing, go ahead, but you've been warned. Very tone deaf. Two of the three hosts are tone deaf, I should say. The tone deafness is off the charts, and it will make your blood boil because they say, oh, it's happening on both sides of the aisle, the political violence. Really? Examples, please. George Floyd died of an overdose. We know that now. Fentanyl overdose. I mean, I'm really trying. When you sit down on a bus, you're not freaked out about the guy in the MAGA hat. Okay. Normal people aren't freaked out by guys who look like Charlie Kirk. Okay. I'll tell you, if I'm on a bus and I sit down on public transit or whatever, I'll tell you who freaks me out. The woman with blue hair and a shaved, or the side of her head shaved. And I'm going to say it, there is a real big problem with violence in the Black community. Okay. I'm just going to say it, there is a problem. And I'll tell you why that is. It's because the Democrat Party has this new form of slavery and has enslaved the minds of the Black community. And they have convinced the Black community that if you don't vote blue, you shouldn't vote for anyone. Okay. And they have weaponized the welfare system against the Black community, because this is the same Democrat Party of the 1800s who enslaved them back then. So now you've got the Black community allegiant. They have an allegiance to the Democrat Party. And like I've already discussed, the Democrat Party has been infiltrated by demonic activity. Okay, so when you sit down on a bus, it's not the Charlie Kirks that, freak you out. It's not the Charlie Kirks you got to worry about. It's not the guy in the MAGA hat. Okay, it's the transgender individual, the guy who's clearly dressed up as a woman. I'm freaked out about him. You want to know why? Because I know he's taking hormones, and I know that his biology is all whacked out, and I can't predict what that guy's going to do next. Anyway, so Halpern, the show kicked off this morning meeting. It's a Zoom-based show. And he was asking Sean Spicer to explain to the left why conservatives are so angry in the wake of Kirk's murder, as if it's not glaringly obvious. Spicer, he didn't mince words. He said this, and I'm quoting him: "I am conflicted because I'm sad for Kirk and his family and what happened, but I'm pissed. As a Christian, I don't know how to reconcile that sometimes. I'm tired of the left, the rhetoric. JB Pritzker saying the Republicans should know no peace, or shouldn't have any peace. We shouldn't let them have peace." That's what JB Pritzker said. Okay, and there's articles of impeachment drafted against JB by Chris Miller, State Representative Chris Miller. He filed those, and it's calling for his resignation. People are calling for his resignation, and there have been articles of impeachment drafted up because of his rhetoric. But Sean Spicer goes on. He says, Charlie, what he symbolized was a movement. And what he was leading was a movement. And putting himself out there can't be overstated. Spicer went on to explain that Charlie Kirk, much like Donald Trump, was an enigma. Whereas, Trump was a unicorn of a presidential candidate, Kirk was a unicorn of as an organizer and as an activist. Spicer said, this violence in all of its forms is wrong. This violence. But when you go after Donald Trump and you try to kill him twice, okay, and then you're going after people who are activists, you're not just going after people who are activists, you're going after leaders of the movement. Okay, so I'm really trying to wrap my head around this. They brought up Paul Pelosi, and I'll get to that here in just a second, but really throw it in the comments section. Who on the left has been targeted by people on the right? Really? I mean, can you name somebody who is a leader of the leftist movement? A leader of the leftist movement or the progressive cause? Can you give me one name that has been targeted? I can give you several. Charlie Kirk, Donald Trump, Steve Scalise, Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, the list goes on and on. These are leaders in the movement, conservative Christian leaders. And really, I don't even think that this is Republican, Democrat, red, blue, left, right. I don't even think it's that anymore. It's just kind of easy to talk about it this way. Really, it's just a battle between evil and good. So he said, Sean Spicer, in this podcast, he says, this violence in all of its forms is wrong. But when you go after Donald Trump and try to kill him twice, there was 2 assassination attempts in his life. They're not just going after people who are activists. They're going after leaders of the movement, and they're trying to stop them. Not just to stop the people, but the movement. And that's the big difference here. Now, there might be incidences. I can't even really name them. Paul Pelosi, George Floyd, people who are on the left. And I mean, I don't think George Floyd probably voted ever, right? So you can't even really say he was on the left. He was brought down because he was irate, had priors. There was a police officer who brought him down in a known hold, a known police hold. And then he died because he overdosed on fentanyl. He had like 15 milligrams in his system, which is 3 times the amount that usually kills a person. Okay. And not to mention DeCarlos Brown Jr., who stabbed Irina Zarutska on the plane or on the public transit in North Carolina, Charlotte. I was comparing George Floyd's rap sheet to DeCarlos. I will say that DeCarlos had a longer rap sheet, but a lot of the charges and the convictions that George Floyd and DeCarlos Brown Jr. had were very similar. Okay. And I'll just say it. If George Floyd were allowed to, or were alive today, and if he was still breathing, if I was a betting man, I'd say, yeah, he'd probably wind up stabbing a girl in the neck, much like DeCarlos Brown Jr. did with Irina. Held a gun to a pregnant woman's belly. This is just facts, okay? George Floyd. And I don't even know if you could really argue that he was somebody on the left. He was a member of the Brown community. So by default, I guess the Democrats say that we own him, right? Just like they did in the 1800s. But I really am struggling here. And Paul Pelosi, I mean, at the time, nobody was making fun of Paul Pelosi being, hit in the head with a hammer. I will say that people on the right were questioning, like, what the hell happened? He answered the door in his underwear. A man came in and hit him in the head with a hammer. I mean, we were questioning, is that his lover? If we had actual questions, it doesn't mean that we were, making fun of him. We were just asking questions because something didn't add up. We still don't really know the whole story behind Paul Pelosi and who attacked him and why and the motives there. But I am really struggling to find out or to think of somebody on the left that has been targeted by somebody on the right, specifically leaders in the progressive movement that have been targeted by people on the right. So he says violence and extremism, Sean Spicer in this podcast, and craziness is one thing. But when you're trying to silence Trump and when you're trying to silence Charlie Kirk, you're not just going after them personally. You're going after the entire movement. Why? Because they're leaders. And I don't think people fully appreciate that. And this kind of reminds me, do you guys know of the famous quote that President Donald Trump had where he says, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just standing in the way. And President Donald Trump, he was asked, by reporters if he was scared or if he was afraid for his life amidst the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And Trump said, no, I'm afraid for the country. He goes, I'm not afraid for me. I think his actions, Barron Trump's actions tell a little bit different story. I mean, who wouldn't be scared out of their mind? I mean, this guy is so, he's just a great guy. He called the Utah congressman, and I'll get to that clip here in just a second, called to see how he was. He was actually at the Charlie Kirk event, the U.S. congressman, the Utah congressman. And the Utah congressman said that Trump had called him on the phone shortly after it happened, checked to see how the congressman was doing, and started talking about Charlie Kirk and his wife and his kids. And he said that it was a very emotional conversation. And I mean, what kind of guy, the president of the United States, calls the congressman to check in on him and starts talking about and reminiscing with this congressman about Charlie Kirk's life? And that just tells you the type of guy he is. He's a very busy guy. I'd imagine he's the president of the freaking United States, okay, leader of the free world, and takes time out of his day to call the congressman and to remember Charlie with this congressman who had been at that event at Utah. Anyway, Trump famous quote, "They're not after me, they're after you. I'm just standing in the way." Charlie, Sean Spicer correctly noted, was standing in the way. He's standing in the way. And not only that, violence from the left has been building up for a long time. And this is what Sean Spicer said in this clip. This is not one person, one thing, 1 month. This has been manifesting for decades. Okay, the left has always been at the helm of silencing, censoring, and canceling people. And it didn't just happen with the rise of Donald Trump. I want to be very clear about that. It didn't just start happening in 2016. There's all kinds of people who were canceled because of their faith. Christianity is one of those faiths, is the only religion really where I see people are attacked, killed, made fun of. And it's probably because you're telling the truth. You don't get assassinated for not telling the truth. Okay. But this has been going on for decades. I mean, they were censoring people on social media prior to 2016. It really reared its ugly head, the censorship, in 2016 with the rise of President Donald Trump. But it was going on much before that. People were losing their jobs. People were canceled if they held certain positions, specifically positions that aligned with Christianity. So we've been told to shut up. We've been canceled. We've been censored for decades. And this has got to change. Okay, the canceling, the censor, the telling conservatives or Christians really to shut up, that's got to change. And what followed here, this mass censorship that has been going on, what followed here in the podcast with Sean Spicer, they were talking about the censorship, and Sean Spicer, kind of lit him up and said, hey, there's been censorship of conservatives for decades. And what followed after that comment, he said, the both sides thing, Sean completely rejected that. And he said, January 6th, is nothing like a man being assassinated. Okay, everybody wants to point to J6, Governor J.B. Pritzker and the like. Number one, the only person who died that day was a Trump supporter. So again, I ask you, who on the left has been targeted, prominent figures more specifically, but even people on the left generally, who has been targeted? Those Capitol Police officers weren't even on the left. People showed up, and then the Capitol Police officers, I had friends there that day. The Capitol Police engaged the crowd first. And then they felt like they were backed into a corner, and they started fighting back because naturally, when somebody engages you first, you defend yourself. Okay. J6 is nothing like a man being assassinated for his political or religious beliefs. J6 was something that got out of hand that could have been prevented had Nancy Pelosi allowed the National Guard to be there and more Capitol Police. And then Halpern in this podcast, and I've already talked about this, he accused the president, Donald Trump, for mocking the attack of Paul Pelosi. The way I remember it, Donald Trump was very somber and very sympathetic. I mean, remember when RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she died, and, Donald Trump was coming off of the plane and reporters said, "Oh, Ruth Bader Ginsburg just died." This woman hated him, despised him. And Donald Trump was like, "She was amazing. You're just telling me this now. I had no idea." He goes, "She led an amazing life. If you disagreed with her or not, that is the way you respond when somebody dies." Right? And Donald Trump, Paul Pelosi didn't die. He got smashed in the head with a hammer, and it was a very odd story. And he answered the door in his underwear, and there was a guy there. And conservatives, people on the right, were questioning that. Anybody in their right mind would have questioned that because, hey, let's seek justice for the victim, Paul Pelosi. That wasn't mocking the attack, okay? And I don't think President Donald Trump ever mocked the attack. And Spicer went scorched earth from there in the podcast. And I'm going to play a little clip of it here coming up in a second. But he says, understand that there's a difference because two sides get hurt or say stupid shit. That it's equal, that it's equal. Both sides do say stupid things. Even if President Donald Trump did mock Paul Pelosi, which I don't think he ever did, he might have mentioned he answered the door in his underwear, which I found weird. He might have said something, along those lines, more of a curiosity or questioning of the event. But there's a big difference between both sides saying stupid stuff. And yes, President Donald Trump has said stupid stuff. Governor J.B. Pritzker has said stupid stuff. There is a big difference that is not equal to the assassination of a guy. Okay. We on the right have been canceled, censored for decades. This is what Sean Spicer says. Told we can't go there, shut out of events, literally told we can't take jobs. It is not the same. Okay. It is not the same to compare Donald Trump mocking Paul Pelosi to Charlie Kirk literally getting a bullet in his neck. Are you people insane? That's violence. Okay. Maybe Donald Trump has said some hyperbolic or inflammatory rhetoric and has said things that are inflammatory. That's called free speech. The free speech ends when bullets start to fly. Okay. So Spicer said, quote, "The left will not allow people on the right to speak their minds or have a voice." So this whole argument about both sides, I can coexist with people on the left. That's what Sean Spicer says. And I know I can coexist with people on the left. But God knows there's plenty of them, people on the left, who don't want to coexist with people on the right. Although they have the coexist bumper stickers, they actually mean the opposite of that. That is the fundamental difference. And sure, Charlie Kirk had some inflammatory rhetoric and even divisive at times, divisive rhetoric, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I want there to be a line in the sand between me and the guy with the godless ideology. And that was what Charlie Kirk was all about, that there is a good and there is evil. There is right and there is wrong. And that is really the fundamental difference between the two sides. The right can coexist and poke fun or maybe even mock or, I do it on this show all the time. We mock and poke fun and everything, but I can definitely coexist with AOC, Ilhan Omar, and their ilk. But the same can't be said for the people on the left. They don't want to coexist with people on the right. So Sean Spicer, he got it exactly right. Despite the protest from the left and the water carriers in the media, this is not about both sides, because there is clearly one side that does not want to coexist with the other. The left does not want to coexist with the right. The right, in a very satirical fashion, you've got Charlie Kirk, friend of the show, Joe Bob from TPUSA. He's known for his quippy, poking fun at liberals. The left doesn't even really do that. They just jump right to your threat to democracy. You have to be stopped. There have been cable news prophets out there. I like to call them cable news prophets out there calling for the assassination, calling for the killing of President Donald Trump. Okay. So there is a destructive left-wing culture out there that has spent decades trying to silence conservatives and really silence even white people or Christian people. There's this left-wing culture that is just boiling with hatred, and they have crossed a deadly line. It's gone beyond censoring. It's gone beyond silencing on social media. It's gone beyond doxing or getting people fired. This is crossed a deadly line. And I want to point this out. I will get to this story because there was an individual, Desmond, on the left, when Charlie Kirk was shot, there was all this hubbub about, nobody's paying attention to the school shooting that happened in Colorado. Desmond Hawley, who has now been identified as the shooter, 16 years old. Like I said, I don't even see these people as people anymore. The school shooters or the shooter of Charlie Kirk, the Nashville train shooters, they're not even really people anymore. They are shells of a human being taken over by a demonic force that has quite literally infiltrated, I believe, the Democrat Party as well. Anyway, so Desmond Hawley, and we're going to get to him. He's seen at an anti-Trump rally with his dad. Okay, so there is a left-wing culture out there, and they're getting you earlier and earlier and convincing you of this destructive hatred and convincing you that this is the way. That this godless ideology is the way, the godless ideology that sterilizes children, that promotes homosexuality and destroys families. Okay, and it's quite because that's literally the definition of homosexuality is same sex. There's no procreation going on, and it's an attack on the family and the family unit. And Charlie was all about that. He said having kids is better than having a great career. And there's a side that promotes the destruction of family. So actually, I want to get to this. Before we get to Desmond Hawley and the school shooting there, on the left, they were saying like, we should pay attention to the school shootings, the elementary kids who were just shot up, and they were saying gun violence, which is so funny because the left doesn't want to talk about the root of the problem, which is that there is an evil that has infiltrated their souls. And they don't want to talk about that. So it's easier to talk about the gun violence. And they said, we should be paying attention to the school shooting. Well, it turns out that they don't really want your attention on that, probably, because Desmond Hawley was radicalized by an ideology that appears up to this point to be an ideology, the same ideology that killed Charlie Kirk. So I'll be right back. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I'll be right back. Conservative cat clips where the claws come out and the truth is on tap. I love the truth. I'm your host, Kat, and we are cutting through the holy hypocrisy and setting the record straight from the big lie that is pushed by the left. The Bible supports illegal immigration. Oh, really? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because guess what? We're walking through scripture and we're going to provide you some common sense. Now, every time we talk about the border security, some activist grabs the Bible and says, Jesus was a refugee. Okay, sweetie, let's clear this up. Jesus wasn't hopping the fence or dodging border patrol. Okay, his family fled legally under laws of the land. There's a big difference between seeking refuge and violating the country's sovereignty. The Bible is crystal clear about this. God is a God of law and order, and he's just so awesome. Man, I could just jump for Jesus every morning. Not chaos, not loopholes. God is not a God of that. God is a God of order, and everything has a place. Romans 13, 1-2 says, let every person be subject to governing authorities. Whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed. Okay, translation, the nation has immigration laws, okay, and they're not being followed. Smuggling people across the borders, overstaying your visa and lying to get in, that's not compassion, that's rebellion, okay? And now, yes, the Bible says care for the stranger. Absolutely. But here's the kicker. In ancient Israel, the sojourner or foreigner was expected to obey the laws of the land. Here's Numbers. Numbers 15, verse 16 says, one law shall be for you and for your stranger who sojourns with you. There was one law, one standard. Not, oh, well, they meant well, let them break the rules. Nope, that's not it. There was one law shall be for you and for the stranger who sojourns with you. That's what Numbers 15, verse 16 says. And you are welcomed always, but you have to respect the system. You are welcomed when you respect the system. Okay, so let's talk about Nehemiah, the wall builder himself. He didn't pray away the invasion. He got up and he built the walls of Jerusalem to protect his people, not out of hate, but out of duty to his nation and to God. Tell that to an open borders bishop the next time they scream, build bridges, not walls. Build bridges, not walls. Okay, Nehemiah, he was a wall builder. The Bible also teaches us the importance of national identity, borders, and responsibility, and responsible governance. God divided the nations at Babel, and he assigned lands to tribes, and there was order. Not this open range global free-for-all, which is exactly what the left wants. So now the Bible doesn't bless law breaking just because someone has a sad story. Okay, it demands we show compassion within the boundaries of justice, just kind of like how Jesus and God are. God is a merciful God. God is also a God of justice. Illegal immigration is not mercy. It's disorder, it's deception, it's disrespect for the very nation God entrusted you to protect. Okay, so leftists, listen up. This has been Conservative Cat Clip. I'm Cat. The Bible commands compassion, not chaos. Laws, not loopholes. Justice is demanded, not just your feelings. Okay, so let's stop twisting scripture to fit your socialist slogans. Build walls, build bridges, not walls. And let's start reading the truth and the true backbone of this scripture and look at the several examples which show us that illegal immigration is not condoned in the Bible. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. Thanks so much. Hey, go ahead and smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. I so do appreciate you being here. I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to bring Pastor Tim Farrell on, but I will address some of your comments. Kristen says, good morning, Kat. And Kayla, good morning, Kayla. I'm glad that you're here this morning. Some fights going on in the chats. Just keep it civil, guys. That's all I ask. He himself, after 3 children and 3 adults were shot, said that unfortunately, so there's the key word there, Kayla. A lot of leftists, they like to quote this or have been quoting Charlie Kirk here, and they use this quote as, fire, and they say, oh, well, Charlie Kirk was for guns, and this is what led to his death, which is just very silly. 3 children and 3 adults were shot. Unfortunately, it is worth some gun deaths every year. What is it? Every year to keep his God-given rights. Okay, so, Kayla, I know you're a Christian. Second Amendment, this is a God-given right. We are endowed certain unalienable rights, endowed by a creator, right? And this is not something to dismiss, that it is a God-given right to keep and bear arms. So if he believes that other people deserve to bury their babies as a sacrifice for his Second Amendment, he can't be surprised when he's a victim of his own teachings. The only person who has ever said that some people deserve to die, even if it was for our rights, was Charlie himself. So I'll address this very quickly, and then I want to bring our guest on, Pastor Timothy James Farrell from the Tabernacle Church. It's easier for you, Kayla, to talk about gun violence, and I know why, and I totally understand. because it's really hard to face the fact that there's evil that exists in the world. Okay. And I point to DeCarlos Brown Jr., who just a couple of days prior to Charlie Kirk being shot, was on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina, and took a pocket knife. Okay. Now, that could have been a pen. It could have literally been anything, a baseball bat. Are we going to ban those things next? You know what I mean? Are you calling for knife control? He took a pocket knife and reached around her seat and stabbed her in the neck. She bled out, and she bled a very painful death, I'd imagine. According to experts, I mean, she sat there. She didn't even really know that she was stabbed, and she bled out within minutes. She died in a puddle of her own blood. Nobody helped her. Nobody even sat there with her and prayed over her or tried to comfort her when she was dying. And I understand why you want to blame the gun. It's because it really is hard to grapple with that evil exists. Okay, so your argument falls very flat when you look at situations like DeCarlos Brown Jr., that incident situation, the killing, the brutal killing. He didn't even know this girl, right? That's just pure and utter evil. This was an immigrant, a Ukrainian immigrant who fled her country from war, another act of evil that's going on. You can't deny that evil exists in the world, and that's what took not only the life of Charlie Kirk, but Irina Zarutska. And I know why you are using the gun argument, because it's easier. But I encourage you to do the hard thing and to recognize that evil exists. Okay, Pastor Timothy James Farrell. He's joining me right now. How are you, Pastor Tim? I think that you're muted.
There we go. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you, Kat.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me on.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Pastor Timothy James Farrell, really quick, tell us about the Tabernacle Church, who you are, and then we'll jump right into your message that you're going to have prepared and planned for Sunday, Sunday at the Tab. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Well, again, thank you for having me on. I am privileged to be the lead pastor of a non-denominational church in Bloomington Normal called the Tabernacle. It's affectionately called by most of our members and people here in the Twin Cities as the Tab. It's a lot easier to spell for us people from Clinton. So anyway, we're a non-denominational church. We're a Bible-believing, Spirit-filled church. We believe that Jesus Christ is the answer for all the ails and all the ailments and pains and persecution and troubles and trials that we're seeing here today. So I just believe that there's no Jesus.
Oh, hang on. I lost your audio there. A quick second.
There
All
we
right.
go.
Good.
There
Yep.
we go. Am I back? All right. Very good. So anyway, I'm very honored and privileged to pastor here in McLean County, a thriving and growing church. We're running out of places to sit in our worship center. We're expanding our parking lot. We're growing. And so God has been very good to us. It's a great church with great people. And I love all that we're doing, not just here in Bloomington Normal, but across the state of Illinois and America through, of course, outlets like yours, through social media and publications and all that good stuff. So thank you for having me on. And I am going to be taking a break, or I should say a pause this Sunday from our fall message series on the fruit of the Spirit called Juicy Fruits. And I'm going to be sharing 7 observations about the life of Charlie Kirk and what we can learn from him, how we can pick up his baton and continue to run and pursue the causes, champion the dream that he had, not just for America, but for his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, because Charlie really believed that all of the problems, whatever problem you want to talk about, at the core of it is the human heart. And there's only one person that can transform the human heart, and that is God. Mm. So we believe with all of our hearts that God is the answer, and Jesus Christ is the only one that can change the darkened, depraved, sinful heart of any man, any woman, has nothing to do with race or gender or nationality. We're all born sinners. We're all born in darkness and depravity. And we see that every day by simply just paying attention to the news outlets that come across our feeds, that people need Jesus today. So we're going to be talking about that on Sunday. And obviously we're going to be talking about that here today on the Conservative Cat Show.
Yes, Pastor. So there's been a little bit of a, disagreement. Oh, Charlie Kirk is not a Christian martyr. Do you believe that Charlie Kirk's death fits that description, and why?
Absolutely, I do. He was not only a Christian martyr, he was a political martyr. He was a social martyr. I believe with all my heart he will go down as the Martin Luther King Jr. of our generation and of our day and time. His death was a political assassination as well as a religious assassination. If there was anything, and Charlie even said this, I know there's clips of him saying this going around the internet and social media right now, that the one thing that he wanted to be remembered for in life and in death was his faith in Jesus Christ. His relationship with the Lord came before anyone and anything, including his massive, what I call foundation and ministry, Turning Point USA. So before he talked about, laws and government and society and culture and politics, all of that, he understood that the core of the human problem is the heart. And only Jesus Christ could change someone from the inside out. And you've heard me say things like,
Oh, I lost your audio.
there we go.
Oh, there we go.
You've heard me say this numerous times from the platform at the Tabernacle, is that when we as human beings seek to change and transform to be different people, we always work from the outside in. God always works from the inside out. And God understands that if you change the core, the heart of a person, an individual, eventually what is inside will come and manifest and show itself outside. And so Charlie understood that. And so I believe he died not only as a Christian martyr, that he was. He died proclaiming Jesus Christ. He stood, all of his political views, by the way, all of his social views, as yours, as are mine, are rooted and grounded on the Bible. Mm-hmm. The Judeo-Christian faith contained in the Bible is where his politics, his social justice, his worldviews came from. And the reason for that was because of Jesus Christ, the living God, alive and well in his heart. So I believe, given time, we'll look back on this day like so many who were alive during the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. 5, 10, 15, 25, 50 years from now, and we'll remember where we were. Mm-hmm. We'll remember what we were doing when we heard the news. Number one, that Charlie Kirk got shot. And number two, that Charlie Kirk passed away and went to heaven. It was a defining moment. We're living in that right now. It's still raw for most of us. We're still obviously going through the grieving process of this tragedy, regardless, hopefully, of whether a person's political view agreed with him or not. They mourn the passing of an individual, of a human being who is made in the image and likeness of God and had the right given by God to him to live out a full span of life, just like any of us. And that's the wonderful thing I loved about Charlie. And of course, he was representing God even in this, is he debated, he dialogued with people who vehemently disagreed with him, but he did so with kindness and compassion and courage. and at times even mercy. And unfortunately, he was not given that. But that's the God we serve. That's the God that Charlie sought to represent. He wanted to represent the Lord well, and I believe he did that. And we'll look back at this time. We'll not just mourn his death, but we will celebrate it. And like so many back in the 60s when Martin Luther King Jr. was politically and spiritually, religiously assassinated and removed from this earth with so much potential. Think about if MLK would have lived a full life.
Well,
we don't know how our world, how our country would be different. And I think the same is true of Charlie. I haven't heard anybody say what I just shared with you, that he will go down as the MLK Jr. of our day. I certainly haven't heard anybody say this, and I believe it with all my heart, that he would have been president of the United States in just a matter of time, whether it's 8, 12, 16 years from now. Tell me someone from his generation that had more influence, that aligned himself greater and straighter with the Republican Party of our day and time than Charlie Kirk. I think he had presidential possibilities written all over him. I certainly would have voted for him. I know, Kat, you probably would have voted for him, as would, I believe, hundreds of millions of people would have voted for Charlie. It would have been a landslide of a presidential victory. We don't know the motivation for his killing. Hopefully we do someday. But regardless, I believe the potential was there for Charlie, not just to be, a social media and a television, personality, but potentially being the president of the United States. That's how big of a loss this is, not just in our time, but in the future, that could possibly have influenced not just a generation, but generations, plural, coming behind him.
And I think that it's fascinating you draw the comparison to MLK Jr. because, right before Charlie was shot, he had the bullet whizzed by everybody and lodged right into his throat. Very traumatizing to watch. I don't recommend anybody watch it, but it's interesting, the comparison, because I really do believe that Charlie was, he was definitely an advocate for the younger generation, Gen Z, college campuses. And, they're a little bit more vulnerable being in those college campus zones. But also he was fielding a question about transgender shooters. And he had mentioned, race, violence knows no race or gender or anything like that.
Yeah.
He's fielding this question about transgenders making up some of these mass shootings. And, just recently to Carlos Brown Jr., and we know the statistics surrounding the violence amongst the Black community and in the transgender community, violence also being suicide. We can't dismiss that because that is a form of violence.
Yes.
On top of the mass shootings we've recently seen committed by those who identify as transgender. How do you grapple with that as a Christian? You had said violence knows no race or gender, and 100% agree. But how do you look at the statistics and say the brown community is really, making up a large portion of the violent incidents that we see on the news? And the statistics prove that and show that. And even the left will not deny that, or Democrats won't deny that. So how do we grapple with that and have empathy for these groups, the transgender identifying individuals, the more vulnerable communities, our minority communities? How do we deal with that as Christians? What do you think?
That's a great question. And
I know, it's tough.
I'm going to answer the question with a question. It's a rhetorical question, so I'll answer the question for you and your listeners. It's the same question and same answer that a cow moos, a duck quacks, a pig oinks, and chickens cluck. It's in their nature. And that's what we're talking about. We don't want to talk about the core of the problem. And the core of the problem is the human heart. Regardless of age, race, gender, nationality, or political position. Doesn't matter. The problem is the human heart. You can't make a pig a cow. You can't make a cow a chicken, and you can't make a chicken a duck. Why? Because you'd have to change its nature. And that's what Jesus Christ does. Jesus Christ is the only one. God himself is the only one that can change and transform literally the human heart. And by doing so, by changing the core of who we are, watch this now, it changes our actions. It changes our words. It begins to even change our mind. And what we try to do is we try to change everything else, the mind, the actions, the words. All of those, and we've been in a series of messages on the fruit of the Spirit. Fruit is evidence of the root. If Jesus used the metaphor of a tree for a person, and when you understand the metaphor that Jesus was using, that we as people are trees, and the fruit hanging from the limbs of our lives are evidence of the life in the tree. So I'm not a botanist at all. I don't know. I know about two types of trees, okay? But I can spot an apple tree a mile away. I can spot an orange tree a mile away. I know an olive tree a mile away, not because I can read the leaves or I can diagnose the bark. I can look at that tree and go, that's an apple tree because I see apples hanging from the limbs. That's an orange tree because I see oranges hanging from the limbs. Oh, that's an olive tree because I see the olives, those little green olives hanging from the limbs. We try to change the fruit of a person, and it's never going to change the person. The only way to change and transform, think about this, the world is to change and transform people. And that's why God in his love and his mercy sent his son, Jesus Christ, 2,000 years ago, not just to save us from our sins, but to save us from ourselves, to save us from killing one another, to save us from taking a knife on a transit in Charlotte and killing an innocent girl. How do we stop that? I'll tell you how we stop it. People need the Lord, and people need to come to the Lord, bend their knee, bow their head, and open their hearts to his transforming, loving power. And I will tell you this, every person without exception who's ever come to God through Jesus Christ has always been received with open arms. God's never rejected anybody. He welcomes any and everyone to come to him, and he will change you. That addiction, that habit, that mindset, that bad action or bad attitude can be changed, but God is the only one that has the power to change us. Now, why is that? Let me ask the deeper question. Why is God the only one that can change a human heart and change a human life? And the answer to that question is very simple, because God is the one who created us and made us. In other words, when we have I'm speaking to you right now on my laptop computer. There's something that I'm more of a botanist than I am a technologist, right? I know how to turn my computer on, and that's about it. I mean, beyond that, I'm in trouble. But what do we do when we have problems with technology? Our phones, our Android devices, our iPads, our computers, our laptops. What do? If we really have a problem we can't figure out, a deep problem, what do? Here's what we do. We send it back to the manufacturer. We send it back to the ones who made them. Why? Because they can get inside. They know how it's made. They can go, oh, this is why this isn't functioning. And they can take the wrong piece out and put a new piece in. And that's what God does. In Ezekiel 36, it says this: when people come to God, I will give you a new heart I will put within you a new spirit. I will take the old sinful nature out of your heart, that darkened, depraved, angry, bitter, racist heart. I will remove the old and I will bring in the new. I will give you a new core. I will place a new spirit within you. And by changing us at our core, watch this now, it's just a matter of time before the fruit of our lives, our words, our actions, and our deeds, including our thoughts, begin to change and transform. Why? Because we went back to the manufacturer. Mm. That's the problem today. And when I hear about all these other symptoms and all the other solutions that don't deal with the human heart, you can take a pig and you can bring it into your house and paint its little nails. You can put a little pink bow around its neck, and you can act like that pig is your dog, Foofy, right? You can even call that pig Foofy. But the minute that back door opens in your house, that pig is going to hit that back door and it's going to run right back to the pig pen and waller around in the slop. Mm-hmm. And why? Because that's in its nature. That's what pigs do. They love to waller. They love to roll around in the mud of that pig pen. Listen to this. Just as much as eagles love to fly in the air. Why do eagles fly in the air and why do pigs waller in the slop? I'll tell you why. It's in their nature to do it.
Mm. See, and I struggle with that, even like in my own personal faith. Like just listening to you has really changed my perspective on it because, you know, I'm in this news world, right? Where I'm looking at the statistics, I'm looking at the policies like you're talking about. Well, how can we change the transgender community? How can we change the policies surrounding the Black community? And, you know, you see the violence coming from these communities statistically, and you're like, oh, well, something has to be wrong with that, with the transgender issue or with them being specifically Black. And I hate to say that, but that's where your mind goes. Something is wrong there. Right. But that's the, you know,
that's still the symptom.
That's the symptom. I mean, and it's not, it's a heart problem. And, you know, you want to change these external things because you think that you have control of that because it's something you can see. You don't get to see the inside of the person. Yeah. It's easier for us to attack these external. Yeah. I mean, that's something that I struggle with even personally, because I'm always like, there's something that the transgender community, we have to change them, or we have to, you know, ban hormone blockers and things like that.
But it's really, the human heart. And I think part of our of course, secular humanism is alive and well, especially in our culture and in our country. And we've kicked God out of everything, right? All the disciplines, whatever it is, psychology, medicine, you know, even some churches have kicked God out of church. And we've done exactly what you've said. We've tried to change people. We've tried to change things on our own. And why do we do that outside of God, the manufacturer of an individual? Well, I believe, number one, it's because of pride. And number one, if God does it, we don't get the glory. We love to say, oh, look what we did. I changed my husband. I changed my wife. I changed my kid, or I changed society. We get the glory. No, when God's the one that does it, and he's the only one that can do it, Kat, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the problem is. I don't care what it is. You name a problem. All of it is subject to the root. It's just fruit. We're just talking about the fruit. You can talk about gun control now. You were talking about gun control earlier on your show here today. The problem with guns isn't the guns. The problem with the knife isn't the knife. I was an educator, a teacher at higher education for over a decade. I had over 2,600 students come through my classroom. I administer thousands of tests and exams, and most of my students did outstanding. They did. The average grade, I think, was an A-, B+. But every once in a while, there was a student who, you know, failed an exam. I think only failed maybe one or two out of over 2,500 students. But we never blamed the pencil. We never blamed the pen for the failed exam. Who was at fault for not doing good on a test? It was us. It wasn't the pencil. And I think so many times in times like this, and I get it. I understand. It's easier to talk about the fruit than the root. It's easier to talk about what we can readily see, the gun, the knife, the mental condition, the emotional trauma, whatever. All of that is fruit. All of that is outside external topics.
Mm-hmm.
What is the problem is the human heart, and only the manufacturer, only God in his power, in his wisdom, can change us. And that's why we don't go to him, because we want the glory. We want to say, oh, look how great I am. You know, I grew up singing a hymn in the church, How Great Thou Art. And it's talking about the greatness and the power and the majesty and goodness of our God. And we're giving all the glory to God in that song. Well, here's the song of most American people. How great I am. Look how great I am. Look how smart I am. Look how strong I am. Look how cunning I am, and we get the glory. And that's what secular humanism does is it kicks God out. It tries to solve God problems without God. It tries to solve the laptop without Steve Jobs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And think about this. If I had a problem
so
with my
guilty of this, like sitting here, and this is how you know you're a great pastor, Pastor Timothy James Farrell from the Tabernacle. We're talking with him this morning, folks. If you're just joining, you're a great pastor because I'm sitting here and I'm getting itchy because I have always looked at, these external socioeconomic factors and, hey, what's going on with the transgender community? What's going on with the Black community? What's going on with, the left, Democrats? What's going on with them? And I've always, thought it's external. There's got to be something externally wrong here. And I'm trying to work at that out all in my head. But really, it's very simple. It's just a God problem.
It's a God problem.
It's a God
St. Augustine said it this way, Kat. And for those of us that have had a God encounter, and I know you have, I know many of your listeners have, maybe some haven't. And I want to encourage you to reach out to Kat or myself. We would love to help you meet God and meet the Lord Jesus Christ. But St. Augustine of the early church said this about humans and the human heart. He said, there's a God-shaped hole in every single one of us. And we try to fill that God-shaped void in our human hearts with anything and everything other than God. And what it is, and I know I did it. I know you probably did it. I know every single one of us as human beings have done it. We try to take the things of this world, fame and fortune and money and popularity and drugs and alcohol and, positions. If I was just, the manager, I would be happy. I would be a better person. Oh, if I was just the boss, if I was just the CEO or the CFO, I would be fine, right? And we try to fill that void within each and every one of our hearts with, watch this now, the things of this world rather than the God of this world. And when we take and we finally say, you know what? There's nothing in this world that's going to make me happy. There's nothing in this world that's going to bring me true contentment, purpose, and meaning in life. So if there's nothing in this world that can do that, then there's only one other choice. And that is something outside this world. And the one person outside this world that can fill your world to overflowing is God. Mm-hmm. And that's what St. Augustine said. Once we fill that God-shaped void in our hearts, guess what? It changes us. It transforms us literally. And I go back to this, from the inside out. And then we start seeing what I call, and we've been in this series of messages at the tab, the fruit, or really a better word, the produce of the presence of God in our hearts. We start exhibiting the godlike qualities, the Christ-like qualities from the limbs of our lives. Now, what are those? They're ninefold according to the Apostle Paul's letter to the church at Galatia chapter 5, verse 22 and 23. Galatians 5, 22 and 23 says this: the fruit of the Spirit, or the produce of the presence of God in the human heart, are these: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And if you look around our world, what could the world use a whole heck of a lot more of? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Well, where are those things found? And how can we have them? And how can we experience them in the web of our relationships with one another as husband and wife, parent to child, employee to employer, or just random citizens of the human race? Only one place, and that's God.
Mm-hmm.
So in short, Jesus is the answer for the world today. And he was not just, he isn't just the answer for the world today. Jesus will be the answer for the world tomorrow.
And that kind of brings me to this question. The cultural impact, the theological impact of Charlie Kirk's death, and Christian martyrs, and the spiral that happens. I've actually seen it just in the last couple of days, people reaching out to me, to my family members, asking them, hey, tell me a little bit more about Jesus. You go to church, right? And they, that's so bizarre. I mean, that's like a Christian's dream, to have somebody text you and say, hey, tell me a little bit more about Jesus. You believe in him, right? Yes. That's crazy. And I think that we're going to have more and more of that with this Christian martyr, Charlie Kirk, with this death. I don't know what you think and why that is. And does Scripture talk about, the blood of Christian martyrs spurring something up in the church?
Yes, absolutely. The Church of Jesus Christ was built on the blood of martyrs. Every single one of Jesus's 12 disciples, except for one, or 12 apostles, obviously Judas killed himself, but every single one of them, 11 out of the 12, were martyred for their faith. Literally chose to die for what they believed in, not just believed in, but what they knew. And people will not die for a lie unless they're mentally ill. Okay. But a normal person in their right mind and right heart would never die for something that they know is not true. But Kat, we have seen, not just over the last 2,000 years since Jesus walked the earth, we've seen throughout humanity, the last 6,000 years, that there have been countless millions of people choose to die for what not just they believed in, but for what they knew. In other words, people will die for the truth because they know it's true. And they will say, I am not, and Charlie Kirk, in a roundabout way, indirect way, died because of that. He was willing, he knew, Charlie knew, he knew better than any of us the threats on his life, the harassment, the terrorism. He knew the risks of doing what he did, especially in an open air forum. Charlie was a brilliant mind. I've never seen somebody, I process stuff pretty quick, but he knew the answer to the person's question standing before him before they got done with the sentence. Mm-hmm. He was processing stuff like that. You can't tell me he didn't know, even this past, Wednesday, when he took that microphone, that there's a chance here that either I'm going to get hurt or someone else is going to get hurt or something worse. He knew that. He knew that. But he was willing to do it. And he was willing to ultimately die for what he not only believed in, he knew. And there's something deeper. See, belief is cognitive, but a knowing is in here. You know that you know that you know. It's like, no, this isn't just something I no longer believe in. I know it to be true. And man, when you are grounded and founded on that rock, and we know the rock, of course, is Jesus, right, Kat?
Mm-hmm.
When you know that, you're willing to do what Charlie did. And this is what I believe is a call to every single one of us, is to follow in the footsteps of Charlie, to go beyond belief to knowing the truth, and therefore stand for the truth and speak the truth. And if called upon, die for the truth. Here's one of the things. I'll share one of my 7 points with you and your viewers here this morning that I'm going to share on Sunday.
At 10 a.m. Don't miss it, folks.
At 10 a.m. about Charlie Kirk's life. That very few people can say he died doing what he loved. He was willing to die for not just what he believed in, what he knew, but what he loved doing. I think if we could talk to Charlie right now in heaven and ask him, say, hey, would you do it different? He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it different. Now, would he maybe rethink some things about maybe security or the placements of the rally? Sure. I don't think Charlie wanted to die. I know he wanted to live a full life with his wife, Erika, and 2 kids. Okay. I'm not saying that Charlie would have checked out. I'm saying, would you stop doing what you love? And would you stop doing what God called you to do? I know that answer. You know that answer. Charlie would say, absolutely not. I would, if dying means, I have to stop doing what God's called me to do and stop doing what I love, I'm not going to do it. Mm-hmm. And boy, if we could do that, if we could say, you know what, I'm so committed to the truth. I'm so committed to my God. I'm willing to die for it. It'll change the world. Back to your question. And that's what happened 2,000 years ago. A group of 12 men, along with some women, not only believed that Jesus was the answer for the world today, they knew he was. And they willfully and joyfully died for him. And the blood that they shed as Christian martyrs was the seedbed out of which what we know today, the largest major world religion in the world, Christianity, to be. Christianity is over 2 billion people. Some are saying 2.5 billion Christians. It's the largest religion in the world. Islam is behind it with about 1.5 million. But Christianity is the fastest growing religion in the world today. And it has been the fastest growing religion in the world for the last 2,000 years. Why is that? Because the people who know the Lord Jesus Christ know that he's the answer for the world today. And how do they know that? Because he changed their heart and he changed their life. And they say, boy, if God can change me, God can change you. And really, that's what we're saying today, aren't we, Kat? Mm-hmm. Is, hey, well, God changed us. And if God can change Pastor Tim and Kat Barker, he can change anybody.
Well, and that's what I've really had to struggle with over the last, I'd say 6 or so months, because it's like, I don't know. I always thought that you could change maybe something via policy. It's that political brain. Before I came to Christ, like truly, I was always had that belief, but never really knew Christ. But before I knew him, I was very, very much into politics and news and things, and I still like. I think that I can change it through policy or these external factors, and you can't. It's really a God problem. It's changing people's hearts and minds and getting them to accept Jesus as Lord and Savior. So, I don't know. It's been really fascinating to see. And, I've talked about this where there's this infiltration, and I don't know what your thoughts are here, but of the Democrat Party, where there's this evil that's going on and like almost like a spiritual warfare. And I don't want to say it's the Democrat Party, but there's like, because it's almost easier to say that. And I think that we put labels on all of it.
Right.
Democrat, Republican, red, blue, right, left. But really, what are your thoughts about spiritual warfare, and what does that mean, even?
Yes, absolutely. Well, for those of us who believe the Judeo-Christian doctrines of the faith, we believe this, that there is powers of good and powers of bad, powers of light and powers of darkness at work in our world today. And they exist in another realm. You and I live in a duality world. We live in two worlds at one time. Most people don't know that, but we do. We have, of course, the physical world, the physical realm. And God, in his genius and his wisdom, gave us 5 physical senses. And through those 5 physical senses, we access the physical realm: sight, smell, sound, touch, all of that. But most people who don't know God and don't believe the God of the Bible and the doctrines and core beliefs of the Bible would say all there is to life is the physical realm. Atheists that's the atheists and agnostics, that's their belief, that all there is this life, and when you die, you go back to dust, because all you are is a physical being. And you know what? If all we were physical beings, that would be true. But the truth is, we are physical beings and spiritual beings. And therefore, we have dual citizenship in two worlds at the same time. We have access through the physical world, through our physical 5 senses. And please listen to this. Most people don't know this. You access the spiritual world through your 5 spiritual senses. Just like you and I have 5 physical senses, God has given every single one of us 5 spiritual senses through which we access and attain spiritual realities. Okay? Now, in that spiritual world, there is a warfare going on, as you just alluded to, between what we call the forces of good and the forces of evil, the powers of light and the powers of darkness, and ultimately, who are behind those? Well, behind the power and forces of light, we would know, is God. And God is good all the time. And God is loving and kind and compassionate, tender in heart and mercies towards us. But there's another entity alive in the spirit world and realm currently we call him the devil, or Satan. And under Satan are a whole bunch of fallen angels and demons, or demonic evil spirits, sometimes is what some translations in the Bible say. And just as there are holy angels working for God in the forces of light, there are unholy angels, forces of darkness, working for Satan, working for the devil. And the powers of darkness hate the powers of light. The principalities of darkness hate the principalities of light. And there's this war going on in the spirit realm. Okay. Now, ultimately, those powers of good and evil, please listen to this, they have the same intention. And the intention is this, is for the hearts, minds, and lives of men. In other words, they want human beings to be loyal to them and not the other. God wants us as Christians, Kat, to be loyal to him, to work for his will and purposes in the earth. The powers of darkness want people not to be loyal to God, but to be loyal to the devil and to be loyal to his will and purposes in the earth. What is the will of God for the earth and for human beings? That's a good question. I'm glad you asked. Jesus answers that for us in John 10:10. You might want to write that down in your little notes if you're taking it. in John chapter 10, verse 10, Jesus said, of the will of God and the will of the devil. He said it this way: the thief, i.e., the evil one, comes to steal, kill, and to destroy. But Jesus said, I have come. And Jesus, we believe, was God Almighty in the flesh. Jesus said, that's not my will for you. My will for you is not to steal, kill, and destroy your life and to make you miserable. That's the other guy. That's the devil's will and purpose for humanity, is to literally destroy us. And we see that people are yielding to the powers of darkness, stealing, killing, and destroying every single day. We saw that this past Wednesday with the death of Charlie Kirk. Who was to blame ultimately, or who was, I should say, the source behind the bullet that killed Charlie Kirk? It was the powers of darkness to steal, to kill, and to destroy his life. But Jesus said, that's not my will. That's the will of that other guy. Jesus said, God's will for you and humanity is this: to give you life and to give it to you more abundantly. In other words, God wants us to live the blessed, abundant, triumphant, victorious life. I even wrote a book about it. I think you helped me promote it when it came out, called The Victorious Life. I've written lots of books about this point. God has nothing but good things planned and prepared for us as people. And the devil has nothing but bad things planned and prepared for us as people. So here's what happens, and we need to understand this. The bigger question regarding spiritual warfare and spiritual dimensions entering the physical realm and world to where it has impact for the good or for the bad, like we saw this past Wednesday, is this: how does the will of God or the will of the devil enter into the earth? Because they're in a spiritual dimension that can't cross into it. Mm-hmm. In other words, like for example, right now, you know, and I know because of our faith that we have angels with us right now. Okay, they are here. There's no question right now. We are surrounded by what is called in the Bible guardian angels. Okay, but we can't access them through our physical senses. Are you seeing this thing?
Right.
But we can through our spiritual senses. All right. So how does the power and the will of God, and how does the power and the will of the devil enter into the world and manifest their wills and purposes for either the good or for the bad, to where it literally impacts us like it did this past Wednesday afternoon with Charlie Kirk? How does that happen? Here's how it happens. When you and I as human beings choose to follow one or the other, when we choose to yield our lives to the light, then goodness comes into our lives and through our lives to the world. When we yield our members, our mind, our will, our bodies, our attention, our money, whatever it is, to the powers of darkness, the powers of darkness then have access to us and through us to impact people in the world. The Bible calls these the gates of hell and the windows of heaven. What are gates and windows? Here's what they are. They're access points. How do I enter into your house, Kat, if I was going to come over this afternoon? Probably through the front door, right?
Yeah, you can come through the window, but
if your front door, right, if people are locked out of your house, I've seen people try to enter their house through their window, right? So what are gates and windows? All they are metaphors for access points. Listen, into a different dimension. So the Holy Spirit from God or an evil spirit from the devil enters into the world, the physical dimension, through a gate or a window. So the question then is, who are the gates and who are the windows?
Mm-hmm.
We are. People are.
Yeah.
And when we give our hearts to God, then good things happen in the earth. When we yield our minds and our talents and our money is a neutral object. We can use our money to feed people that are hungry. We can use our money to go out and buy clothes for people that are naked, for the good. And we can also use our money to hurt people, to harm people, to ultimately use our money, go do something and kill people, right? Money's just a neutral object. It's how we're used it. Well, people are like that. When we yield our lives and our hearts and minds to the good, then God's will is done in the earth. When we yield our minds and hearts and lives to the powers of the devil, the powers of darkness, watch what happens. Then evil enters the world, and we are left with the ramifications thereof. So whenever, and here's the point I'm going to make, now I'm going to be quiet. Whenever God wants to do something in the earth, he has to find a person who will cooperate with him, who will work hand in hand, heart to heart, mind to mind, mouth to mouth, foot to foot with him. And then God's will is done in the earth. Whenever the devil wants to do something in the earth, what does he got to do? The same thing. Because the gates of hell and the windows of heaven are people. So the devil has to go find someone who will, again, hand in hand, mind in mind, heart in heart, align with him so that he can have access into this physical world and realm and dimension. Until that happens, he's left outside and standing, like going back to our metaphor, in your front yard. He can't come into your house. He can't come into our world. So whenever we see things happen like it happened to Charlie Kirk this past Wednesday, and other illustrations, as you mentioned in your opening monologue, and we see those horrific, evil, bad things taking place in the earth, who's ultimately behind it? The powers of darkness. Now, they're not accountable for what happened. The human being is accountable. But the human being was influenced and yielded his mind and his members to those powers. The same is true and the opposite is true. Whenever we look around and we see people doing acts of kindness, love and compassion, helping their fellow man out, who can be applauded for that? Well, obviously the person, but really it's God. Because God works through people, the devil works through people. And here's the thing, you and I daily, Kat, as human beings, and this is really, really deep, and this is where the rubber meets the road. We choose which one we follow every single day. We choose either the path of light or the path of darkness. We choose either the good or the bad. We can use, our words are neutral. Proverbs 18:21, you can write that down. Proverbs 18:21 says, the power of life and death is in the tongue. We can use our words and our tongue to encourage people, and we can use our words and our tongue to what? To discourage people. We can say nice things with our tongue and our words that will help people. But how many of you know, I know you know this, people can use their words and their tongue to hurt people, to harm people, to discourage people. And, and just as our tongues are neutral, we choose which one to yield it to. So it is with all of our members. And that's why it's so important that we're changed and transformed from the core of our being so that God can make us a window of heaven. And God can, and we just say, Lord, use me. Here I am. Send me. Make me not a burden today, but a blessing today to someone. Help me be a source of encouragement today, not of discouragement today to someone. Lord, I yield my life. I yield my heart, my mind, my hands. I give you my pocketbook. Lord, use everything that I have for your good and will and purpose in the earth, not the will of the enemy, the darkness.
Wow. Spiritual warfare.
It's deep. It's deep.
Deep. And I did not know that. The windows and gates of hell, those are just people.
They're just people.
They're just people.
Yeah.
And I am really excited for your message on Sunday. And I'm going to get you out of here. You got a lot of work to do today.
Yes.
I know I'm really excited for your message on Sunday. So Sunday at 10 a.m., you're going to be talking about Charlie Kirk. And what's the message title?
The title of the message is 7 Observations about the life of Charlie Kirk and what we can learn from them. I'm so excited. Again, it's just something that God's going to use, right? God's going to use for his good and for his glory. And I would encourage anyone and everyone, if you're in Central Illinois at all, Bloomington, Normal area, come to the Tabernacle. It's located at 1845 West Hovey Avenue. You can search us on the web at thetab.tv or thetabernacle.tv. We're also on social media. We have a Facebook page, YouTube channel. Go out and search us out there. But we'd love for you and your listeners to come and to join us this coming Sunday, 10 a.m. at the Tab, as I share 7 observations of the life of Charlie Kirk and what we can learn from them. It's going to be a powerful time. It's going to be a time of healing. We're going to be praying for one another, but we're also going to be praying for our country and for our world. And what is that prayer going to be about, Pastor? Well, prayer for people to come to the Lord, because as we just talked about, Kat, there's only one answer. There's only one solution, and that's the manufacturer. That's God. God is the answer for the world today. Thank you so much for having me on. It was an honor, privilege once again to be on the Conservative Cat Show.
Oh, Pastor Tim, it's always the best having you on. Subscribe. You can actually subscribe to the Tabernacle on YouTube. And if you can't be there in person on Sunday, I highly recommend you are. Be sure to subscribe and watch it live at 10 a.m. It'll go live. All right. Bye-bye, Pastor Tim.
Thank you so much. God bless you, Kat. Thank you for all the good you are doing for the Lord.
Thank you for all that you do, Pastor Tim. God bless you. Folks, I've got one more story. I'm going to take a quick break. I've got one more story that I wanted to hit. It was that Desmond Holly. We've got updates about that shooting that happened in Colorado. Just another example of that spiritual warfare Pastor Tim was talking about. There was a shooter whom the devil, these evil spiritual forces, was working for. There was a 16-year-old boy who unfortunately succumbed to this and took his own life. He's deceased from his self-inflicted injuries, but he has been identified as a student at that school in Colorado. This was Jefferson County. I will have updates for you on that story. I wanted to make sure I got those out for you, but hit the subscribe button. We'll be right back. Hey, good morning. I appreciate you being here. A big thank you to Pastor Tim. Don't miss it. Sunday, 10 a.m. at the Tabernacle, Hovey Avenue in Normal, Illinois. Yes, I have updates for you. This is a tragedy that happened shortly after. This was Colorado Evergreen High School. Happened shortly after the Charlie Kirk assassination. And FBI Director Kash Patel, he took to his official X account and made an update, or provided us an update about the investigation in the shooting. He goes, quote, "We have deployed our evidence response team and other specialty resources as part of our response to this incident. The suspect is deceased from his self-inflicted injuries and has been identified as a student at the school, 16-year-old Desmond Holly. Most importantly, our thoughts continue to be with the 2 victims injured in the shooting and all those who have been impacted by this horrific attack. So the 2 victims, from what I understand, critical condition, but not yet dead as a result of this shooting. Officials in Jefferson County, Colorado, said on Wednesday afternoon that the shooting happened at a local high school, leaving several students injured, according to multiple reports. Kash Patel said that they were going to share as much as they can, as much as they're able to. I'm not really happy with Kash Patel's performance here. I'm going to be honest. I think that there's other members of the Trump administration who have done a superb job, but I really don't know why we're not getting info about the shooter or more info about the shooter. We've identified him, but they went and they scrubbed all of his social media. You can't find out much about him. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office spokesman, Jackie Kelly, said in a press conference that someone had called 911 at about 12:30 to report an active shooter on the campus of Evergreen High School. Kelly, the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office spokesman, added that the suspect, a teenager, is thought by law enforcement to be a student at Evergreen. So they knew he was a student pretty much on Wednesday, but we still don't have a ton of information. Kash Patel just released that, yes, confirmed he is a student. The late, I guess, or the deceased shooter killed himself. It's not clear whether the shooting started inside or outside the school, but investigators have found at least one area outside the building where the shooting had happened. This is a developing story, obviously, with varying injury tallies. We know that there are 2 students. There were 4 students who were injured, 3 critically, including the alleged or the assailant. We now know who is the assailant. This was according to ABC News at the time on Wednesday, shortly after the Charlie Kirk shooting. Now they falsely reported, or they didn't get all the details. They said he was engaged and neutralized. Which to me indicates that law enforcement shot him, but that's not the case. Kash Patel confirmed that he died of self-inflicted injuries. Evergreen, it's a suburb of the Denver area. Now Desmond, he apparently, this was a 3-level school, so 3 floors. Apparently, they don't know if it started on the inside or the outside. They did identify an area where he had shot somebody on the outside, according to surveillance cameras. He was going up and down looking for victims. The school's lockdown procedures prevented the shooter from reaching many students, but 2 were critically injured, and they are now being treated at hospitals. 1 victim remained in critical condition. The second was transferred, still in critical condition, from one hospital to another. 1 victim was shot inside the school, and the other victim was shot outside of the school. So there was one area where they identified that, yes, the student was shot outside, probably, unfortunately, so sad, pool of blood outside. And they said that student who was shot outside was attempting to flee. Okay, now here is where it gets interesting. Desmond, the shooter, Desmond Holly, authorities say that he's been radicalized, but they won't give specifics as to how he's radicalized, what, by whom, by what he's been radicalized by. Pastor Tim just on, we kind of already know. Anybody who does something like that, steal, kill, destroy, that is the plans and purposes the devil has for the earth, and through people, through the gates of hell, through people who are just people, the gates. We know that he was probably just radicalized by this evil force that is in the spiritual realm. But we don't know a ton about, whether this was politically motivated or what's going on with this Desmond shooter. He did kill himself, self-inflicted wounds, died by those injuries. And it's unclear exactly at what point he turned the gun around and killed himself. If it was upon shooting that person outside. I mean, there's a lot that is not being released here. And I don't like that, the lack of transparency that the FBI seems to have with this story. Local authorities are still investigating. The FBI is still investigating, and I get that, but I mean, there's got to be some transparency here, right? And the officials have said that he belongs to an extremist group, and I mean, I'm not sure if that's a trans-related extremist group, but I will share with you so far what I've found. And like I said, it's tough to find things because they scrubbed his social media. The shooter, Desmond. This is the shooter. And then he used a revolver. Now, this is a family, a member of his family. Unclear if this is a father or what. There are reports, several of which are circulating on social media right now. So I want to be very clear about that. I am not reporting this as fact. I am telling you what has been circulating and what the social media presence of his family members seem to show. Okay. So there is a photo of the family of them at an anti-Trump rally. This is Desmond right here on the left. You can read the sign. It says, "I'd throw eggs at Donald Trump, but they're too expensive." This is an anti-Trump rally. It says, "We are watching you." Morgan Holly, a man who is believed to now go by the name of Winter, but we don't know exactly the relation between Morgan Holly and Desmond Holly. By this social media post and by his Facebook, it looks like at one point, or it looks like this man could be the father of Desmond. Okay, so in this social media post, Morgan Holly says, "My niece, her friend, my daughter, my sister standing up today." Julia and Desmond were there as well. Go ladies, great signs. Okay, so there's that. And then, this is Winter Holly. And people say that this appears to be Morgan Holly, but by a different alias or a different name, who is identifying as transgender on social media. Like I said, at this point, that is just what people can find about the family. They scrubbed Desmond's social media. I don't know exactly the relation between Morgan Holly and Desmond, but Morgan did post, they have the same last name, and he did post a picture of Desmond holding up anti-Trump rally posters. So take that with that what you will, right? I think that we deserve to know if this was a politically motivated attack, and I'm really demanding more transparency from the FBI, and you should too. That's going to do it for us today. I appreciate you being here. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. That is the best way to support the program. And as always, you can support the program by supporting PatriotPumpEnergy.com. PatriotPumpEnergy.com. Get your bottle of premium pre-workout. It's right here on the shelf behind me. You can get the premium pre-workout for $10 off using promo code ConservativeCat at checkout. Good stuff. It's an alternative to those nasty energy drinks that are full of caffeine and sugar. This has no artificial colors, and we're not trying to pump you full of addictive substances, okay, to get you hooked in the product. We just want you to have long-lasting energy. You guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. I love you, and we'll talk again tomorrow morning.